I have seen a lot of changes in food prices with changes in inflation and stuff, and that's global. That's not just in the United States, but there are times in my life when I have had to live on very little food. And so I thought I would go ahead and make a few options known and available for meals that are $2 or less. $2 or less per person. So obviously, if you live by yourself, the meal would be $2. If it's you and say your two kids, well, now the meal is $6. Does that make sense? Some of the meals super straightforward because a lot of us when we were younger grew up with some of these things being comfort food. For instance, mac and cheese, PB&J, or if you're allergic to peanut butter, almond butter and J. J for jelly. You can have grilled cheese sandwich, a thing of, whole wheat bread, $2. Thing of, jam or jelly, say like $5. And the jam or jelly can last you for the month, and the bread can last you for the week, depending on how many people are eating from it. Again, but you split it up and you're paying less than $2 a meal. The mac and cheese, if you substitute some water for part of the milk, you can make the milk go further, and the mac and cheese box is less than $1 in the first place. You have some meals like, ramen noodles that are kind of staples of college times, for a meal that is $2 or less. And you have some meals that are very not nutritional that you can get as like little frozen meals or things like that. But all of that stuff, you don't want it to be the only things you're eating. Like, if you're eating cereal every day and you make a box last for like 5 breakfasts and the milk last for like the whole week, technically that's $2 or less a meal, but you want some nutrition, in your body, and a lot of these things are very starch or carb heavy, and you need more than just carbs. You need some actual nutrients in your body. The other thing is making all of this stuff, making basic spaghetti and things like that. Yes, you can have leftovers and turn it into more than one meal, and that's great, but it's also more of just eating the same thing over and over again. So you want to intermingle these things with some more nutritional things. You don't want every single meal to just be the carb heavy stuff, even though that's $2 or less a meal. So for starters, yes, all of that stuff works. And maybe as part of your budgeting, you need to realize that you need to eat a little more of those things because they're less expensive. But in all likelihood, if you are watching this, you're already eating all that crap. You're already trying to reduce your budget, and that's already the stuff you're doing. So I want to bring up some different things that can help. And I want to go ahead and focus in on a couple of things that are minerals or vitamins. It's very important for us to sustain our bodies physically that we get a certain amount of some stuff in us. And so I try to focus on how can I get that in me. I guess the first place to start is protein. We need protein. Protein helps us to build and retain muscle. Protein helps us to function. It's an excellent energy source for our bodies. Meat is expensive. Just outright, meat is expensive. And some of the meat alternatives that are for like vegetarians and vegans and stuff can also be a little expensive. It can be hard. And so one of the things that I use, and some people are kind of not great about it, but honestly it retains whatever flavor you put with it, is tofu. If you get extra firm tofu, so it's not squishy, it's not slimy, nothing like that, you put soy sauce in there, it will taste like soy sauce. You put anything. You put a bunch of oil and oregano and stuff with it, it will taste like basil and oregano. It will taste like whatever you put with it. You put a bunch of garlic in there, it's gonna taste garlicky. Whatever flavor or sauce or whatever you want to say you put with that tofu, I make Mexican tofu. I put a bunch of cumin in there, some little pepper flakes and stuff. Tofu is the cheaper version of a plant alternative. Now, some people are allergic to soy or, don't want a lot of soy in their diet. That's understandable. There are some vegetable-based meats that are less expensive than getting the actual meat. Sadly, the one that is, like, in my personal opinion, the best is the Impossible meat, but it also can be a little expensive. In my opinion, it's a lot better than like the Beyond or, the Gardens burger stuffs and things like that. And also the Impossible meat can be used as meat for other things too. It's not like it's just for a burger. You can put it in shepherd's pie. Technically, shepherd's pie is supposed to have lamb, and some people are really particular about that. But getting some cheapo potatoes are nice and cheap, but they're also carby and starchy, so we want to put something else with them. Get some frozen green beans to put on top or something like that, or some frozen peas with mashed potatoes are yummy. And put some of that not real burger meat, because it saves you $1 or $2. And then you can make more than one meal out of it, and then you have an alternative that has some sort of nutritional value. To be clear, frozen vegetables are not as good as fresh vegetables, but fresh vegetables are more expensive. Frozen vegetables are at least slightly better than canned vegetables. If you can't afford frozen and you have to go canned, you have to go canned. You have to do what you have to do. But if you can afford to go frozen instead of canned, frozen has a little more retention of nutrient in it, as long as you don't overcook and get them like super soggy and just take every nutrient out of it. But that's true of any vegetable. Having a vegetable in your meal of some kind is usually, the majority of the vegetables, gonna give you a little bit of protein, but it also gives you a ton of vitamins. Green leafy vegetables, or broccolis and mustard plant-based vegetables like that, like cauliflower, broccolis, all that stuff, super good in getting you a little bit of nutrient, a little bit of vitamins in your body, a little bit of minerals in your body. So learn to like vegetables, because vegetables are cheaper than fruit in most cases. And fruit is sweeter, fruit is funner, but fruit is often more expensive. If you can afford it, try to get some bananas. Bananas are high in potassium, everyone knows that, but they actually have some other vitamins and stuff in them too. Be aware that the ripeness of a banana changes the calories in the banana. So if you are really low on calories, you're really feeling that, check the ripeness of your banana before you eat it. It can help. There are some vegetables that are just, like, in general, cheaper if you buy them in a certain way. For instance, carrots. If you buy them pre-cut, pre-washed, pre-everything, or baby carrots or whatever, it can be more expensive than buying them just as a raw carrot that you, yes, have to cut up yourself, but it can be cheaper to do that. Say you're going for some peppers. Green peppers are usually cheaper than red or yellow peppers. And the green pepper has just as much in it as the red or the yellow pepper. It's just less expensive most of the time. There's certain kinds of cucumbers that are cheaper than other cucumbers, certain kind of potatoes that are cheaper than other potatoes. And you might say, oh, well, these ones are better for this kind of recipe. That's true. Absolutely true. There is a big difference between, a red potato and a gold potato, and what you do with those in their best forms. Russet potatoes are cheaper, but sometimes they are the best potato for that function. That's absolutely true. But in reality, you gotta go with what you can afford. And you can make small compromises in the type and still end up okay. Maybe those golden potatoes were going to be amazing as smashed potatoes, and you were going to smash them but not mash them, and it was going to be amazing. And russet potatoes just really aren't good for that. You're going to have to deal with the fact that those golden potatoes cost you an extra $2, and maybe instead of having smashed potato, you go with a russet and you just make a baked potato. It's not as exciting, it's not what you had originally wanted, but it's what you can afford. If you are going for nutrients in your body, you want to make sure that you get some kind of a vegetable in, because the vegetable is going to be the strongest carrier of nutrients and vitamins for you. It's going to be the most bang for your buck when it comes to getting some sort of nutrient in your body. And when you're super poor, your meals are $2 or less per person, you need to find a way to get as much nutrient in there as you can. And believe it or not, there are tons of vegetables that have decently high protein in them, and you can utilize that. You can't afford to have meat every single day, but vegetables are usually cheaper, especially if you're not buying them fresh. If you can get them frozen, you can save some money that way, and it can help. If you are on SNAP, if you are on food stamps, if you go to the farmer's market, if you have one in your area, a lot of states have a doubling effect where you get tokens for the food stamp, and it's basically an exchange of $1 for a $1 token, right? But you also get a $1 buck, and the $1 buck can only be used on fruits and vegetables. Can't be used on anything else. But it's basically a way of doubling your dollar. You can get more for your buck, and it's fresh, and it's super, super fresh because it's at the farmer's market, it's from local farmers, and it's way, way more packed in nutrients and vitamins. If you have a local farmer's market, maybe you can walk to it, or maybe it's like only a couple bus stops away, and you can do that. If you didn't know, you can go to the farmer's market and you can get fresh fruits and vegetables because your food stamp dollar is doubled. Now, food stamps go further, say at cheapo Walmart food, than at a farmer's market, because farmer's market stuff is fresh, which means it's more expensive. That can be hard, but the quality is way better and the nutritional value is way better. And so, in my opinion, it evens out. In the long run, sure, you can buy twice as many, say, little snack packs or something at Walmart for the same exact cost. But those little snack packs are not going to give you nutritional value. They're not going to actually help your body and keep you fueled and able to keep going. And the more you're fueled, the more your body is functioning well, the more that you can mentally function well, the more your exhaustion levels can have some easing, the more your stress levels can have some easing, and the more you are capable of learning new skills, learning new things, trying new things, and creating opportunities for yourself. One of the easiest ways to stay stuck in a bad situation is to be starving, is to have no nutrition in your body and to have no food going on. You need fuel so that you can function. And the best fuel for you is your proteins and your vitamins and your minerals and the things that actually really excel for your body. Try to avoid a lot of sugar. And I'm not just saying that from a health standpoint, avoid prediabetes and all that kind of stuff, even though all that stuff, that could be a whole other video. That's a whole other thing. I'm saying avoid high levels of sugar because it gives you a temporary boost of energy, but it's not long term, and it doesn't fuel you for real, and you need real fuel. You can't afford to waste your money on fake fuel. If you are living in such a frugal way that you need $2 or less a person per meal, and you're really trying to keep that down, sugar is a waste of your dollar because it is not giving you bang for your buck. Now, every once in a while you might want to get a little treat just because you're not trying to live in abject misery. that's okay. But try to limit it to, say, once or twice in a week. And then the rest of the time, you're giving yourself good fuel. You're giving yourself real, edifying, power-filling fuel for your body. You can learn better. You can execute better. You can do better if your body is more up to par. If you buy something, try to make sure that it's something that can last a long time if it's not a vegetable, so that when you get a vegetable, you have options to go with the vegetable. Maybe the last time you had broccoli, you had it with, like, say, pasta, and the pasta was, you know, cheap, and the broccoli was the expensive part of the meal, but it was still less than $2 whole for the whole thing. Well, the next time you have broccoli, don't just have it with pasta again. That sounds horrible. Have, like, a thing of potatoes in your house, have a thing of rice in your house, have a couple things of different types of pasta in your house. Have these staples that last long term. Have some tortillas. Tortillas can last a long time if you keep them in the fridge. Have some tortillas in your house. This gives you options. You could make a wrap with spinach one day, and then the next day put some spinach and mix it together into like a spinachy sauce and put it on pasta, and then the next day you're like, oh, I have a little bit more leftover spinach. I'm gonna make some rice balls, and I'll eat it like in the middle of the rice ball. And you have options because you keep the staple, and the staple can last a while. And yes, it costs more than $2 to buy a big thing of rice the first time you buy it, but it can last you quite a while. And so it is definitely a way to be cost effective while getting some sort of nutrient in there. And you're spreading out variety instead of eating the same old ramen every day, the same old PB&J every day. Yes, those things are great things and staples to have mixed, intermingled in this diet that you have to be on temporarily while you're getting your financial self above having to be at bottom survival mode frugality. But once you're past that frugality, then you can expand a little. But for right now, you've got to have ways to also get some nutrients in there. It's super important. The other way to get some sort of nutrients in you is through some dairy. And honestly, eating a yogurt and a piece of fruit for breakfast in the morning instead of a bowl of cereal is probably going to fuel you better. It might not feel quite as filling, that's true, but it's going to be way, way more for you as far as quality of the food that you're getting. So maybe one day have cereal, and then the next day, you know, cheapo cereal, not expensive cereal. I'm talking, you know, cheap cereal. And then the next day, have yourself a yogurt and a piece of fruit. That's still less than $2, and you're not starving yourself, because the next day after that, you're going to have cereal again, and alternate them, or make it something that's more varied that way, but that is also helping you, because the yogurt's going to have protein, and that protein is such a good fuel source, and it helps you not lose out on your efficiency in consuming fuel in your body. It's really important to avoid buying stuff to drink. And I'm not talking about just alcohol. I'm talking about juice. I'm talking about soda pop. I'm talking about, you know, flavored milks and stuff like that. Drinking water when you're being frugal and you're trying to keep your meals at $2 or less a meal is just super important. And I've met some people who they are practically starving with the food that they're getting. Like, they are getting such basic food that it's like crazy, because they're trying so hard to stay inside of, you know, some sort of semblance of functionality. And I go to help them with their budget, and I'm like, why is a third of your food budget on soda pop? What are you doing? You could be eating much better than what you're eating. Look at your kitchen. There's no food in here. This is like terrible. And they're like, oh, well, it's my comfort thing. I need my Diet Coke. And I'm like, it's an addiction thing. You are starving yourself. You are actually hurting yourself so that you can keep having this Diet Coke. Like, it's not okay. You got to stop getting so many drinks. And this can be a difficult thing because you might have an issue with water. I, for instance, when I drink water, I seem to have some sort of a sensitivity to it or something. When I drink just basic water, it makes me like burp like a lot. And supposedly I apparently drink too much air in when I drink water. But for some reason, if I drink anything that's not that, it's okay. So what did I have to do? I got a thing like a soda stream. I actually have a soda stream now, and I make my own carbonated water, and it has no sugars in it. But because it's carbonated, I can drink it. It's still water. It's exactly still water, but I can drink it and it doesn't make me get any kind of burping and sicknesses. So drinking only water for some people can be a really hard thing, and you have to figure out something else to do about it. The soda stream has already paid for itself like twice in the amount that I have used it. And I'm still not buying soda pops. I'm not buying sparkling waters. I'm not buying juices. I'm not buying ciders. I'm not buying alcohol. I'm not buying a bunch of coffee and stuff like that. That stuff is expensive when I could be putting actual nutrients into my body. I could be putting stuff that has fiber, that has substance, that has weight in my body instead of a drink that's gonna go out of me in, less than an hour. It's not giving to me. If you can afford to make smoothies for yourself, that's awesome, but it's extremely hard to do that on $2 or less. If you can do a whole fruit into, a smoothie and drink it, that's healthy. Put some protein powder in there, that's healthy for sure, but it's really hard to do that on $2 or less. So if you're living in an extremely frugal way, don't hate on yourself that you see other people like live in their exercise life and stuff and you're struggling. Right now, temporarily, you're in survival mode. Hopefully, that's very temporary and you can get out of it. You've got to set yourself up for success. And that means being real and being honest with yourself and putting as much fuel and investment into yourself as you can. It's not fun to think when you're at the grocery store, oh, I can't buy that because that's too expensive. It is terrible. So if you can set, hey, you know what? 3 meals a day, I have this much for food. How much does that work out to? Oh, look, I can have $3 a person per meal. Or I could have $2.50 all by itself can make quite a difference. You're not just buying stuff $2 at a time, so it can make it feel a little better. When you're living in a really frugal way, feeling like you can buy a decent chunk of food at a time feels better than feeling like, oh crap, I have to go in here with a scarcity mindset that I can't have anything. If you go in there already having an idea of what you want to get and you can buy multiples of it because it will equal out in the long run into being those little cheaper meals that you need, it can feel a little better. It can help to alleviate the blow. Because stuff's not packaged to be one meal at a time unless you're like doing a, meal service or ordering the meal stuff online or whatever, and you're in a frugal place. It's very difficult for you to afford to do that. There are some people who, when they're in a frugal place and they don't have any food stamps or SNAP or anything, they basically go to one of those meal service places and they get it on discount, and then they go to the next place right as the last one is expiring and don't re-up with that first one, and then they do a promo with the next one, and then right when that one's expiring, they do a promo with the next meal service thing, and by the time that one's expiring, usually they're getting an offer from the first one, hey, we'll give you a promo price on this if you come back. So there is that way to try to do stuff, but the meals are very set in stone, and kind of repetitive, and it's not like you don't have to do any kind of meal prep or anything yourself. You do still have to actually do something. So just be aware of that. But if it's gonna end up being cheaper than buying groceries yourself, maybe that would be better for you. You can try doing something like that. It's really about getting through, because in the long run, you don't want to stay in that place where you're living on these cheapo meals. So you just get a little creative and you switch up one or two things, and it can make the meal feel like you're eating something different. Take that tortilla that you used to make a cheapo taco yesterday. Maybe you just did some overnight beans, stuck it in there with some cheese, and made yourself a burrito. Okay? Beans are cheap. The cheese was the most expensive part. The next day, you take a tortilla and you make yourself a wrap. And instead of having a taco, you're having a wrap. It's the same tortillas, but it feels like a different meal. It can get really, really defeating to eat the exact same thing over and over and over again when you feel like you don't have a choice. If you're choosing to eat consistently the same things over and over again because you're on a particular diet, or maybe, for instance, I've met several autistic people who did that because it was comfortable for them, that's okay. It's a choice. But when you are doing that, when you're eating the same meal over and over and over again because you feel like you don't have a choice, that food goes from being the comfort food that you ate when you were a kid to, oh my gosh, I someday am going to get out of this and maybe I'll never eat this again. And you don't want to get to that point because it's a very defeating point to be in. So just be aware that as long as you do the math on the numbers, there's options out there. There's things that you can do. There's things that you can try. And there's even recipes online and stuff like that you can use, and you can make something work. Maybe the recipe is for, like, say, chicken stir fry. You can't afford a whole chicken breast. That's too expensive. So you just get a $2 thing of tofu. You know, you're just substituting that instead. You can still make the rest of the recipe. The rest of the recipe falls in your budget. It's okay. And you just do it. Or maybe you've got this recipe that you found for some amazing meal, but it has a lot of fresh veggies in it. You can substitute frozen ones. It'll still be decent. It might not be up to snuff of what the recipe was originally calling for, but it's going to be good enough. And it's still going to be somewhat satisfying, and at least it's a different meal than what you were eating yesterday. And at least all your meals are not nothing but carbs. Because carbs are easy, because almost everywhere has carbs because they last a long time. They're a shelf staple for a reason. So you gotta insert some stuff in there that has some nutrients in it. Fuel yourself. And you can do that on $2 or less. It is possible.